Hey everybody, this is Happy Hills Cars and Stuff, and today we're going to be rebuilding and replacing a throttle body of a 2006 F-150. The tools and materials you're going to need for this are going to be a ratchet, an extension, 10mm socket, 10mm wrench, I recommend a ratchet wrench, 7 64ths Allen key, or a Torx bit. You're going to need gloves, towels, and brake clean. To start out, we're going to remove the air intake duct. To do this, you'll need to use a ratchet with a 10mm socket and extension to remove the bolt holding it in place. Once the bolt is removed, remove the intake by pulling it out from the fender and the airbox. Once removed, place it out of the way. Now use a 10mm ratchet wrench to loosen and remove the studs that hold the airbox in place. Once the studs are removed, locate the mass airflow sensor cable and remove it by pulling out the red tab and pulling the plug away from the MAF sensor. Now move to the PCV valve attached to the airbox. Remove this by pushing on the green tab and then pulling off. Now pull off the tab with the attached vacuum hose from the rear of the airbox. Do the same with the cables attached to the front of the airbox. Next, remove the airbox by pulling it off of the throttle body. After the airbox is removed, remove the throttle position sensor cable by pressing in and pulling up. For the throttle actuator cable, I recommend removing it after removing the bolts of the throttle body because it is in a tight location. With that, go ahead and remove the throttle body bolts using a ratchet with a 10mm socket and extension. Once the bolts are removed, take a shop towel and clean around the throttle body. Next, take the throttle body and turn it on its side so you can remove the throttle actuator connector. To remove the connector, pull out on the red tab and then pull away from the throttle body. Be sure to cover the intake manifold opening so no debris enters while the throttle body is removed. To rebuild the throttle body, start by removing the throttle actuator. Do so by taking out the 5 screws that hold the actuator in place. After removing the actuator, move on to the throttle position sensor. Move the TPS by taking the 2 screws out and pulling it off. As you can see, in the stock throttle body is pretty dirty, with the walls coated with oil residue and grime. I purchased a new throttle body to replace the stock one, but if you're planning to reinstall the stock throttle body, be sure to clean it well before reinstalling. To install a throttle actuator, remove the plastic casing protecting the small gear. Next, remove the plastic cap by tapping it out. Now, find the spring from the stock throttle body. Notice that the end of the spring protrudes out a bit. This protrusion will fit into a little notch on the butterfly turning mechanism. Take the spring and fit it into the notches shown. Make sure to seat it correctly by turning the spring left and right and verifying the gears turn with it. Once the spring is seated correctly, install the actuator with the opening over the spring. You'll know to seat it correctly when you hear a type of suction noise. Once seated, start hand tightening the screws. Once the screws are threaded slightly, take the tool supply with the new actuator and use it to push in and turn the spring counterclockwise until the spring doesn't snap back when you remove the tool. After this is done, place the plastic cap back in place. Now, using your 7/64 Allen key or Torx bit, tighten down the screws the rest of the way. After the throttle actuator is installed, move on to the TPS. This is how the stock TPS and the new OEM TPS look. Insert the TPS over the rod as shown, twisting as necessary to line up the screw holes. After this is done, insert and tighten the two screws. Take a quick look at your throttle body to make sure everything looks right, and then move on to the reinstallation. Start by taking a shop towel and brake clean to clean around the intake manifold and the throttle body to remove any dirt before installing. Now place the throttle body onto the opening and line up with the bolt holes. Now begin threading the bolts. After the bolts are threaded in partially, take your tool and tighten them the rest of the way. For the rear bolts, you may need to use a U-joint adapter to ensure you fully tighten the bolts. Once the throttle body is tightened down, take the airbox and ensure the seal is cleaned. Place the airbox onto the top of the throttle body and press down on it until it stops. If need be, twist the airbox to align the bolt holes. After the airbox is fitted, find the PCV connection and push it on until you hear a click. Next, find the mass airflow sensor connector and connect it to the mass airflow sensor. Then push in the red tab to lock it. Now clip the hose in the rear to the airbox. Go ahead and start threading the studs back into the bolt holes. Once the studs are threaded, tighten them the rest of the way. Once the airbox is tightened down, take the air intake duct and reinstall it first by pushing into the air box and then into the fender. Once inserted into the fender, start threading the mounting bolt. After the bolt is threaded slightly, tighten down the rest of the way. Now verify that nothing is loose and that your job is complete. As always, thank you everyone for watching, and be sure to like and subscribe for more content coming to the channel soon.